it has been an uncertain few months, I think it's fair to say. But how excited are you now about the new leadership group? England series underway against West Indies next week. We've had a fair few matches now in the domestic tournament, and we'll hear from Nat Sciver-Brunt in a moment. But it all feels like it is the freshness of a new start.
Well, there's very much that going on. And there's also loads of people jockeying for position under the new leadership. Now, I think we've got to temper those feelings of deep excitement, because I don't think you're going to see under Charlotte Edwards revolution. I think we're going to see a bit of evolution. I think there's going to be a strong core of the same players who had such a tricky Ashes series. They're still going to be around, the likes of Sarah Glenn, Charlie Dean, Sophie Eccleston when fit. They're still going to form the spine of the bowling attack and the batting as well. I mean, Heather Knight is going to be staying in the team. Nat Sciver-Brunt, Amy Jones, Tammy Beaumont, Sophia Dunkley. These players are still going to be around. But what we've seen at the start of this season with this new Tier 1 Metrobank series is a whole bunch of youngish England players put their hands up. We've seen centuries being scored left, right and centre. Bryony Smith for Surrey got one the other day. You're seeing a lot of runs being scored. You're seeing a lot of players who are on the fringes coming back into contention. Izzy Wong's had a good start. Em Arlott has scored runs as well as taken wickets. And there's lots of people who are banging on the door. I mean, I've been here at Beckenham this is now the fourth game I've done here at Beckenham, and we've seen Charlotte Edwards twice lurking rather mysteriously behind sunglasses and a hat away to our left, and she's soaking it all up. She's making sure that she's across all the domestic games, and it is exciting, and it's a different system, and we've had some really competitive cricket.
Well, let's hear from the new England captain then, Nat Sciver-Brunt, who I spoke to at Trent Bridge on Tuesday.
Life has changed rather a lot in the last few weeks. How are you getting on?
It has, yeah. Getting used to a new normal. Baby really changes things. So, yeah, working out a new routine, I suppose, for me and Catherine, and then that'll be blown out of the water when we go on tour. So, yeah, it's been fun. Good challenge.
Go on, tell me more.
Well, I mean, obviously the sleeping gets significantly reduced, and you get interrupted a lot more. And really, only one of you can do something at a time, so, as in me and Catherine. So, yeah, that has been tricky to navigate with trying to do my training and stuff like that, but then also Catherine trying to get a few human things done in the day rather than just, like, mum things, just for everyone's sanity, really.
What about chucking in England captaincy?
I haven't even spoken about that. Well, on that front, which I've taken on a bit more brain space with that so far, I haven't been with the group just yet. So, yeah, that'll add another dimension to, I guess, the daily life. As of Saturday, that's when we meet up.
Have you had a chance to think about it?
Yeah. Obviously had a lot of conversations with Lottie and Vinchy, and, yeah, I guess just getting to grips with what I want to do or how I want to do things, and how many speeches I need to make and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully not many.
Was there ever a question in your mind as to whether you wanted to take on that responsibility, given everything else and given the pressures of the cricketing life and how much you do as well as a cricketer?
No, not really.
Really?
I guess it's something that I've thought about for a while. Obviously I've been vice captain for a while, and I guess the ways in which I've been able to help the team in that role. But yeah, I guess seeing myself as someone who can also be in charge of the team, and yeah, just wanting to do that and see how I can help everybody, I suppose. Yeah, obviously that's come at a time where things have already got a lot different for me in my life. Hopefully cricket will be the simple part, like the actual playing cricket. Being captain and being asked by Lottie, I couldn't say no.
And did you ever think, I've got a responsibility here, I'm the senior member of the team, I'm the vice captain, I can't really say no?
Well, I mean, it would have thrown a real spanner in the works if I had said no. No, I didn't really think about that too much, because I just wanted to say yes. I mean, Theo said I could, so that's all right.
Most important. What about Heather? Did you speak to her?
Yeah, I obviously spoke to her after the announcement of her stepping down and all that meant, I guess. Yeah, obviously she will still be part of the team and will be a really important part of the team, and I'm sure I'll have many questions for her. still, having a great working relationship with her, which I do already, will be important for me as well.
That relationship with Charlotte as well, Mumbai Indians, you know each other well, you've played in the same sides. I mean, talk to me about that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, she gave me my first cap. So yeah, it feels pretty special to now be working with her in that capacity, I suppose. I'd say over the years, from when I was a much more youthful cricketer, I probably looked up to her like in a massive amount and probably was a bit scared of her, to be honest. But yeah, now she has such a great way of working with everybody and not doing it in the same way for everyone. So for me, working with her in Mumbai just made me feel as comfortable as possible, really, to get the best out of me, which I'm sure she'll be doing for everybody in the England side.
You have had brief moments of being England captain, normally at quite difficult moments. How do you reflect on that going into the responsibility full time?
Yeah, I've obviously had some games that feel a bit more low-key and some games that have obviously been important moments in our team's career, I suppose. So yeah, reflecting on those at the time. I mean, obviously to start with the Commonwealth Games, going into it, Heather, preparing obviously as she would to be captain and all that, and then obviously getting injured and what that meant for our side in terms of leadership, but also missing a key batter in our lineup, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, that felt quite an emotional time. We were in COVID restrictions and it sort of feels like a different time, a different lifetime away. But yeah, obviously the pressures of cricket don't really change, do they? But I suppose the state that you're in mentally can change. So probably I wasn't in as good a state as I could have been. The team wouldn't have been either. But yeah, I mean, more recently we've had that match against the West Indies in the World Cup where things got away from us. And as a group, we've reflected quite a lot on that moment. And for me as a leader, I've reflected too. And really, I mean, all we can do is look forward and make sure that we're best prepared for situations like that. But I guess to take on the best in the world, really.
What sort of captain are you going to be?
I'd like to lead by example. I want to empower everybody to be the best versions of themselves. And whether that is, obviously people at different stages of their career who play in the team. And so I guess that there'll be different levels of guidance or of help, or not at all. But really, I want everyone to work on themselves and nurturing that instinct in terms of knowing what to do. But yeah, ultimately I'll be judged on wins and losses. So hopefully we can get a few more wins. But by doing things in a way that is smart, that is thoughtful, and that our group can really buy into, I suppose.
Do you think motherhood has changed your perspective on what captaincy and leadership looks like?
Maybe. I mean, I haven't done it yet, so maybe I'll let you know about that. But I guess Theo does bring a certain perspective in that, he's going to be crying or, wanting attention, whatever happens on the pitch. So I guess in that way he'll be a great leveller and great perspective, because cricket at times can feel like it's everything. He'll be a great distraction for that.
How are you going to balance everything? Because you're going to be one of the busiest people in sport very soon.
Yeah, that's true. I'll need a good calendar alert system, I would have thought. It'll be a new way of working for me, which hopefully in the small moments of training or whatever it is won't look different at all. But obviously there'll be a lot more preparation for me away from hitting balls or bowling balls or catching balls. So yeah, I guess probably away from training there'll be a little bit more for me to do. But I'm hoping that I have a good personality to be able to handle those sorts of things and sorts of changes. But also, I'll just roll with the punches, we'll see what happens.
What about at home? How do you switch off? Because you're going to have those downtimes to make everything work. I mean, what does a night or a day where you've got time to yourself or time with the family look like?
Well, probably, getting back from training and taking a bit of pressure off Catherine and looking after Theo constantly. So I get a nice little hour or two with him. But yeah, I think first of all, Catherine and I, and also Theo, will have to get used to being away from home, which will be a bit of a stressor, to be honest, in terms of just looking after a baby. So yeah, I think hopefully cricket will slot in, really. Getting used to that touring life with the baby will be important, and then I can work on things from there.
It's first baby in this setup.
Yeah, and everyone's very excited. I mean, I don't think I'll be signing everybody up for babysitting. I think there could be a vetting process. But
Who's number one on the list? Who's low down?
Well, probably Amy has seen him most, so I would be happy to leave him with her, although not if she's on her own, because she gets a bit panicky, actually. So if Piper's there, I'll be happy to leave him with them. Who is least likely to look after him? Freya Kemp. She's very young, and she was quite scared. We brought him into the centre, and she was quite scared. Well, not scared, but she looked at him from a distance. It was nice, but she wasn't going to be rushing him for a cuddle.
And what advice has Catherine given about captaincy? Because she's played under some of the greats of the game.
Yeah, she has. She's obviously got a very, I mean, that's her personality. She's got very strong opinions on lots of things in cricket. I guess she's got some great ideas and great experience in the game, and a great perspective on it all. But whether all of those ideas come out, I don't know. But she's a great person to debrief things with, and I love talking to her about all things, really. So she'll be a great help, I'm sure.
Just finally, you mentioned that you'll be judged on matches that you win and lose,
Yep.
and also World Cups, and you're straight into it. This year has a big tournament at the end of it. How does that sit with you? How are you sort of seeing that on the horizon?
At the moment, I'm seeing it as an exciting opportunity. Obviously, we've got a bit of cricket to go before then in the summer, and I think the longer we go into the summer, the more comfortable I'll feel in the role. And obviously, Lottie and I have also sort of spoken about things already to do with the World Cup, so it's on our radar. And yeah, it'd be a great chance to discover as a side where we are in terms of, you know, other teams in the world. But really, we're looking to improve ourselves and win some games first in the summer, and
win back a bit of public love, because it did feel at times in the winter that maybe dissipated a touch.
Yeah, definitely. We want to enjoy ourselves on the pitch. We want to show that we work hard. We want to show that we really care about what we're doing, and yeah, hopefully with that we can win back some of the fans that maybe weren't so happy with us in the winter.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's sort of sunk in, right, but it's not. I haven't done it yet, so it's like I think it'll be a really special day. That first time that I guess lead the side out there, and made even more special by Catherine and Theo being able to be there to see me. It'll be really amazing.
Dare I say it, it's like waiting for the arrival suddenly.
Gosh, yeah, that was a really stressful time. Being out in India, and daily questions over whether I should be coming back or not, and what is going on. Yeah, luckily we had about 8 or 9 days after I got back until he arrived. So yeah, it went very successfully in the end, that trip.
Well, here's to plenty of success on the field, off the field. Thank you, Nat.
Thanks, Henry.
Well, that was Nat Sciver-Brunt. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back talking about her England side and reflecting a little bit on what she had to say. By the way, the BBC now has 2 more streams to make it easier for you to hear even more live sport. BBC Sounds, you'll now see Sports Extra 2 and Sports Extra 3 alongside 5 Sports Extra, so even more for you to enjoy than ever before. To see what's on, just scroll through the live radio dial at the top of the BBC Sounds app. Tap on Sports Extra 2 or Sports Extra 3.
The TMS Podcast from BBC Radio 5 Live.
Well, I'm still alongside Daniel Norcross, and Daniel, we just heard from Nat Sciver-Brunt, fresh off maternity leave, lots of different responsibilities now between a personal and professional life that is increasingly busy, but she seems relaxed, she seems like she's raring to go.
Yeah, well, look, this is a great opportunity for her to put a stamp on the team. Now, there's been some concern over whether Nat was the right person to be captain. It's the usual things you get, a little bit like when Ben Stokes was made captain. It's, can we burden England's best player with the added responsibility of captaincy? And there's also a little body of work behind Nat's captaincy, because she's captained England before in the absence of Heather Knight, been the vice-captain, and it hasn't worked out awfully well for her.
She acknowledged that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was the horror show in Dubai in that qualification game against the West Indies. But she wasn't the full-time captain then. It was very much Heather's team. So this is her chance to create her side. And there's no reason why somebody as experienced as Nat, she's been playing for England for 12, 13 years. And she is the best player. She's the number one all-rounder in the world. She had a brilliant Women's Premier League. She will command the respect of her team. Of that, there is no doubt. What will be interesting to see is if there are personnel changes early on, because there was no one thing that was the problem, was it? You were out there in the Ashes, and there wasn't one thing that you could just instantly fix. The fact is that Australia were woman for woman a better side. And what we'll be really excited by is maybe some younger players coming through. We've seen a bit of Mahika Gore, for example, point of difference players, 6'2", left arm, quick bowler. Is there another batter out there? Will Freya Kemp get over injury and come through and be that really explosive, dynamic cricketer that England are hoping for? It's in those sorts of areas that maybe Nat will have opinions and she'll have players that she wants in there. But this will also be Lottie's team. And I think we've got to see this as Charlotte Edwards and Nat Sciver-Brunt in tandem. They know each other really well from having played the Mumbai Indians. They've got a lot of history together. And so, I don't think it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be definitely a team thing.
I think it's really interesting, actually, hearing the way she talked about that balance between home and professional life. And actually, it is the first time that we've seen a sort of active member of the England side with motherhood as part of their agenda. Since Aaron Brindle, you have to go back a long way, 10 years or so, if not more, and also somebody in a significant leadership role. And I do wonder how that's going to shift the dynamic. I actually think it could be quite a positive thing, because at times this England side over the years have been accused a little bit of being not quite as grown up as Australia, and sometimes they've looked a little bit sort of timid and not quite as confident in themselves. And actually being in the position where Nat can go home and think, do you know what, there's bigger things here. She acknowledged, I've got a kid at home, I've got responsibilities, I've got all of these things, and actually that can translate to the rest of the team in quite a positive way. I think this could be a really, really good thing for the England side.
Well, yeah, and in the men's team, it's perfectly normal for that to happen, isn't it? Ben Stokes is the captain, has many children. Jamie Smith has only just come in the side, and he's just become a father. I mean, most of the England team, actually, the men's team, experience fatherhood, and there's no reason why we shouldn't see more of that in the women's game. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot in that. And there's also, don't forget that when Nat goes back home and finds that perspective, she's also got Catherine Sciver-Brunt next to her, who knows quite a bit about international women's cricket. There'll be a really good sounding board there.
And Catherine's not the sort of person not to give an opinion.
Oh, no, she's not shy about opinions. We discovered that. We've discovered that for many years, but especially during the Women's T20 World Cup in Dubai, yeah.
It's interesting what role Heather Knight will play in all of this, because she's still going to be there, part of the ranks, having been captain for 9 years, and that's going to be a change of dynamic. I think there's two ways of looking at it. One, is it going to be difficult when she's in the side in the way that perhaps it was for Jos Buttler when Ben Stokes was around in the 2023 World Cup, because you've got this looming figure of authority? Or is it actually going to work quite nicely and dovetail well? And I think that's where Charlotte Edwards perhaps comes into it, because she's going to have to mesh this and knit it. And had it just been the captain that changed rather than captain and coach, it might have been harder. I think actually there is a fresh leadership team, and I think that will probably work in England's favour.
Look, I'd hope so. We're in slightly uncharted territory here, because in the men's game, it's perfectly normal for a player to stop being captain after about 4 years. It's an incredibly tough job. You're really under the microscope, and then go back into the ranks. We saw it with Alistair Cook. We've seen it really successfully with Joe Root since Ben Stokes came in. This doesn't surprise us. But actually, in the England women's setup, you think back to Claire Connor and then Charlotte Edwards, captains for a very long period of time, much longer actually than the men, and in part because they haven't been under quite the same microscope. Now they are, much more than they were before. So it's uncharted territory. It could go either way. I hope that what this does is revive Heather, I say revive, she was in pretty good form in the Ashes. I mean, she was one of England's best batters. And I think, when you're struggling and coming back from a big loss in the Ashes, you don't want to lose your best players. So it is actually imperative that Heather holds up well and enjoys her cricket again. But I wouldn't say it's a given because, we just don't know. We don't know how that'll pan out. And it'll be very peculiar for her. When you're so in charge, I mean, not an autocrat, but, you've watched women's cricket for years now, and it is a slightly different role, the women's captain, because there isn't quite the same amount of support staff, and so you do a lot more. And so it will be tricky for her. She'll be itching to go, that field placement doesn't look right, you should be bringing somebody else on. Those are going to be challenges that Heather will have to face. I hope for her sake and for the sake of the England team, because I think they really need her, that actually she can be unburdened by those thoughts and actually get a bit of freshness and enjoyment back in her life, because you saw her during the Ashes, I saw her at the end of the Women's T20 World Cup, and she was devastated by the performances of her team, and she was, head and shoulders above all of them, including Nat. I mean, she batted brilliantly in that T20 World Cup and was on the verge of taking England to a really imposing score when her calf popped, and you could see the disappointment and what it meant to her. So I hope that this is going to give her a new lease of life and that she can really enjoy her cricket again.
The TMS Podcast from BBC Radio 5 Live.
Well, we have got news of the England women's squad for the ODI T20 series against West Indies. As part of all this new shake-up, Daniel, of course, new squads, new opportunities. Headline news, no Sophie Ecclestone, but there is context to this in either squad, because coming back from injury, the word from the ECB and Charlotte Edwards is she's just not played enough cricket under her belt. Played in the Metrobank One Day Cup in her return against Warwickshire. She scored a 50 on Wednesday, but not fit enough to be part of this squad.
Well, I think that's fair enough, isn't it? I mean, when people come back from injury, they need time to get back into the groove. And we've got a whole load of players in this squad who've played a lot of Metrobank games. There have been 7 rounds of it. There are some players who have had some really, really good performances, and they're being rewarded for that. And that's one of the things that you love to see. I mean, you say there's new faces. There's also some old faces as well, which is good to see, that, people can come into the game and go back into domestic cricket and be allowed to get better. The likes of Emma Lamb, for example, coming in is very intriguing, and I think entirely fair, as Alice Davidson-Richards. I mean, she's hit 100 in the Metrobank Trophy this year. She provides an option with the ball. She's been used at the death by Surrey quite a lot, so very handy in 50-over cricket. She's a longer form specialist, really, as we saw with her Test 100. So I would say it's an intriguing squad. Some players missing. You mentioned Maya Bouchier not playing, Danny Wyatt-Hodge being, you might say, demoted to just T20, and Alice Capsey not playing ODIs. And of course, would you believe it, sod's law, she hits her maiden List A ton today in front of us, a quite scintillating, sparkling knock of 125, but it's just a bit too late for her. But that doesn't mean, look, she's very young. She's going to feature in multiple England squads in the future. I think this is if you like, it's Charlotte Edwards stamping her authority on the squads and also saying, look, I'm watching you. We've seen her here at Beckenham. She's been around the country. She's watching. She knows who's in the best fettle. And she's picked a squad accordingly.
Yep, so some of those headlines, Sophie Ecclestone, not in either squad, as we mentioned. The quote from Charlotte Edwards, not physically 100% yet. Rehabbing, working hard. She's only just got back on the park for Lancashire. Not enough cricket under her belt to be ready for this series. Maya Bouchier is an interesting one, and Charlotte Edwards says her talent there for all to see. And the challenge is to make consistent match-winning contributions for Hampshire in domestic cricket. And this is all part of what we're learning. If you perform at domestic level, look at Emma Lamb, Alice Davidson-Richards getting opportunities once again. It just shows that the opportunities are there.
Well, absolutely. And Mahika Gore, who hasn't massively impressed, but she is, if you like, she's the Bazball pick, because this is mostly not a Bazball pick. This is people being rewarded, as you say, for their domestic performances. Mahika hasn't performed badly, but she's in there for her potential, and specifically because she's 6'2" and she's a left armour. I think it's very encouraging, and I think it's encouraging for the domestic game, because when players see that if you score hundreds in front of the selector, they're taking that seriously and they're putting you in. It says also we've not got a closed shop. And I think this is a very important part of what Charlotte Edwards has done here. We've talked about this before, about England basically fielding quite samey teams for quite a long time, almost like it's harder to get out of the squad than it is to get into the squad. And this says, no, that's not the case. You're in on merit. And it's great. It's great to see. And it also speaks, actually, to the depth of talent. We were at a game today, which is absolutely thrilling. Ended in a 346-all tie. And there are a couple of familiar names there. Rhiannon McDonald-Gay, who has played for England. Alexis Stonehouse, people would have seen in the 100. They were performing with the bat, batting down at 9 and 10, hitting big sixes. And that is what you want to see in English women's domestic cricket, because that is one of the major differences between England and Australia, that you never get Australia all out, do you? I mean, maybe Megan Shoot, maybe. But if you get down to number 11, are you going to get down to number 11? And England need to be better at that. They need to have power down the order, and we're starting to see that come through.
Couple of other names to keep an eye out for is the return of Emily Arlott, who is in both squads, taken a lot of wickets across the one-day cup matches at the start of the season for Warwickshire. Tammy Beaumont back in the T20 squad as well. Lindsay Smith has the opportunity to make her first ODI appearance, leading wicket taker in the Metro Bank Cup. No Freya Kemp and Danny Gibson and Lauren Filer as well, as they return from injury. Izzy Wong as well getting an opportunity. She had a good tour for England A in Australia. So yeah, we're seeing some familiar names, but also players getting chances.
Yeah, well, I've seen a little bit of Izzy Wong in these Metro Bank games, and she did go through quite a torrid time about 9 months, a year ago. She's got it back. She's got her lines and length back. She's bowling at a good pace, and she hits a long ball. She's a very, very exciting prospect to have come back. I think pace is still a little bit of an issue if you don't have Lauren Filer, but they are supplementing that with people who can hit long balls in the middle order. So, look, I don't think it's necessarily, well, we know it isn't because Sophie Eccleston isn't there, Lauren Filer isn't there, Freya Kemp isn't there, and Danny Gibson isn't there. So there are 4 players that would almost certainly, you would think, be selected in a full-strength squad. But you see, as you mentioned there, Tammy Beaumont back in the T20 squad, that's a great indicator that you are never too old. If you're doing a good job, then Charlotte Edwards she'll have faith, she'll back you.
So this England side head into the summer with, as Nat Sciver-Brunt acknowledged, a little bit of work to do in terms of PR and public perception, because at the end of that Women's Ashes series, they were getting pelters left, right and centre. I mean, I've never seen the comments section on the BBC Sport website as vociferous about that, and not in a sense of anything beyond real frustration at how England have performed and a sense of unprofessionalism. And that was the word that kept coming up. And so there is work to do.
There is. I mean, I think what I would say first off is that it's actually a really good sign how much people care and how much it matters. You know, if you'd gone back 15 years, I don't think people would have noticed. But now, women's cricket is really prominent and lots of people are very invested in the team and they want them to do really well. So when you get the brickbats, it's because of the people care. Now, you've got a different kind of philosophy coming into the tide with Charlotte Edwards as coach. Nothing against John Lewis at all. I mean, he was brought in to kind of free up the players and to give them a sort of sense of their own responsibility, because that's another thing that has bedeviled women's cricket for quite a while. Because of that semi-autocratic leadership at the top, there's been a sense that, you know...
What do you mean by that? Because that could be seen purely as a negative, and perhaps you do see it as purely as a negative, but that's an interesting turn of phrase.
Well, let me put it like this. We didn't really think that there was an alternative to Nat Sciver-Brunt as captain, because...
She said herself it would have put a spanner in the works if she'd said no.
Well, exactly, because there haven't, despite all these players having played for years and years and years for England, there wasn't an obvious candidate to become captain. And part of the reason for that is that the captain was was autocratic. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's the way it was. So I think what John Lewis was trying to do, among many other things, was to get the women to be responsible for their own games, to think on their feet and to get into the game themselves, and to be responsible for their own training, responsible for their own fitness, all those things. Now, unfortunately, when you lose a lot, everybody then zeroes in on lots of things, and the F word, which was brought up, that Charlotte Edwards said she didn't want to bring up. Obviously, people were talking about that, and because in sharp relief to the Australians, who are just the gold standard in women's cricket, they are astounding. England paled a bit by comparison. So you're going to have a change of approach. And I think Charlotte Edwards is going to be like just little things like social media. You know, I saw a post the other day that was back from 10 years ago that was having a go at the England women during the Ashes for posting about being at a party or something in the Ashes and then losing. So this isn't something that's new. It's a bit about public perception. It's a bit about savvies. It's a bit about, you know, no one wants to stop people from having fun, but it's just time and a place and know what to do and when to say these things. And I think you're going to have slightly different emphases. And I think Charlotte is such a well-respected character that I think she's going to, in tandem with Nat, create a different kind of culture. That's not to say that the culture that was there before is a bad one, but it was different. It had a different emphasis. And I think you often see this, don't you? You've seen it in the men's game a lot, where one type of coach is replaced by a very different kind of coach. So you kind of veer from one side to the other. And this is a reset.
Be interesting to see what we get across the summer, because the tests are going to be reasonably significant. West Indies first up in a white ball series, then India, who are going to be a stronger side. We know how good they can be. And then a World Cup in India as well. I mean, these are big challenges for England. You'd expect them to beat West Indies. Last time against India in England, they had a tough time of it. This is going to be a really strong introduction, tough introduction for Nat Sciver-Brunt and Charlotte Edwards, and they don't really have time to ease themselves in.
No, and I don't think the West Indies should be underestimated either. You know, they did win that game that got them into the semi-final of the T20 World Cup in Dubai. You remember Sri Lanka beating England a couple of years ago in a series at the back end of the season. It's those kind of bits of sloppiness, actually, which is what slightly bedeviled the John Lewis regime, that they were a better side but would still find ways to lose. Now, I don't think Charlotte's going to tolerate that. And so I think they're going to come out.
Nor should she, actually.
No, absolutely not. But I think it means there's going to be a lot more intensity in that West Indies series than there might otherwise have been before. Now, India is massive because, you know, in women's cricket, there's Australia, and then there's people vying for second place. Obviously, they'd love to vie for first place, but in reality, Australia's out in front. And India and England, now New Zealand, South Africa, they're all in that pack. And the game is getting better. There's more depth in international women's cricket. If they can beat India, albeit in English conditions, it will give them a massive fillip going into that World Cup. And then, you know, they will be saying to themselves, this year, it's a clean sweep against West Indies, it's a victory against India, and it's a minimum of getting to the final of the World Cup.
You'd say getting to the final is a minimum?
I would say so, because otherwise, you know, they're back in the pack. Now, to do that, that means they'll have to win a lot of games. And they would like to avoid Australia in the semi-finals.
I'm not going to mention the F word, but India is going to be an intense experience as well, and it's going to be physically, mentally, cricket-wise, a massive challenge. And England can have no underestimation about what that's going to be like. But let's not forget, Charlotte Edwards, Nat Sciver-Brunt have had great success playing in the Women's Premier League, so they know what it's about.
Absolutely, they know the conditions really well. But you're right, I mean, India will go into that tournament certainly as one of the favourites to make the semi-finals. England would expect to make the semi-finals, and then it's a matter of wanting to win that semi-final and get to the final. Obviously, they want to win the whole tournament, but I think if they fell at the semi-final hurdle again, that would be seen as a failure. Now, I don't think that would be seen as a failure of the management, because they haven't had an awful lot of time with the group of players. I mean, this World Cup is staggeringly only, less than 5 months away, and they haven't played a game yet under this new management. So it won't be an indictment of the new regime, but it'll be what the regime will be building towards.
Yeah, fascinating times ahead, no question. The England summer gets underway 21st of May for the first of 3 T20 matches for England's women against the West Indies, the first coming from Canterbury.